All right, so for the first time now, we're going to look at making a grip change. Again, everything is based around, can I step over my partner's knee? Now, we can create more of an angle, and we can step over our partner's knee, but my partner still has a free hand to post in my knees with and make it hard for me to step over. So we find ourselves in a situation now where I walk to an angle. If my partner doesn't use a hand assist, and she just tries to stop me with the knee, and pulls the knee up high, I can always step over that knee. But what happens when she takes her hand and she physically posts inside my knee? So now I try to fight the knee and I can't clear that hand. Whenever I see this, I'm going to switch to a far side tight waist. So I'm just going to take my hands and I'm just going to finagle them to my partner's near side hip, her right hip over here. And I play with a far side tight waist like so. Now I have a choice. I can use elbow inside my partner's thigh, like so, and I can use unlocked hands, and I can use a tight waist. Or I can go in and I can lock my hands in a 10-finger grip like so. Okay? For this one, it depends on what your partner's doing with the hand. The advantage of using unlocked hands is that it gives you more range of motion. So that from here, I can pull my partner's knee down further away from my partner's elbow because of the fact that my hands are unlocked. But my hands are unlocked, so the grip is not as robust. If she grabs my knuckle line, for example, and she peels my grip, she can strip my grip relatively easy compared to if I have locked hands. If I have locked hands, because my hands are locked, the grip is very robust. When she goes to strip my grip, it's almost impossible. But I can't pull my partner's knee, pull your knee up, I can't pull my partner's knee nearly as far away as I can with locked hands as I can with unlocked hands. So there's advantages and disadvantages to both. If I find my partner's being relatively annoying with the hand, and I'm just posted my knee, but she's not doing too much to stop me, I can just pull the knee down a slight amount, slip my knee inside, and I can step over. If I find my partner's being a real nuisance where I just cannot step over the knee, then I unlock my hands and I take my hand to the inside like so. And now, when she goes to stop me from stepping over, instead of bringing my knee up to my partner's knee, I bring her knee down to my own knee. So when she goes to start taking her hand in and blocking me, I just walk a circle until now her knee or her hand can no longer reach my knee. And now I play a pommeling game where now I try to go up, she can no longer touch my knee. If she can make contact with my knee, it's pretty easy for her to follow me as we move around. But when she has no contact, now it's harder for her to follow my movement. So I go up, like so. When she goes to follow me, I change direction, and I just step over the knee like so. And now that we're over the knee, that's all we need. We have all the knee exposure we want. Now we play a game where we just relock the hands in any way. We don't have to recenter our hands. We can just stay right here. Then we play the same passing game we did before, where we either hip switch or we walk the legs with the control-based method. So we have the legs shelved. Our partner's flattened out. Our hands are centered like so. We try to step over the knee, but we can't for whatever reason. Most of the time, she has her right hand inside, and I can't step my knee over. It's hard for me to play pommeling. If I can, then great. But a lot of times what happens is I go to pommel, my partner has contact the whole time, and it's hard for me to do. So I switch my hands. From here, I just finagle my hands through. And now we play a game where we either go 10-finger grip, where my inside elbow, whatever hand I have the inside elbow, right now it's my left hand, that palm points towards me, like so. You'll feel it won't feel right if you do it the opposite way. My palm points towards me, let me go inside elbow. If my partner's being relatively annoying with the hand, but I still feel like I can beat her with the pommel, then we can stay here. If I feel like my partner is doing a really good job of stopping me, then we switch to an open hand method, where we go tight waist with an inside elbow like so. And now from here, we drag our partner's knee away. When she goes to follow me with that hand, it's difficult. Now she can't make contact. Now we play a pommeling game. She goes to stop me. She may stop me 1, 2, 3 times. Good, try to stop me. Eventually, we're going to beat that hand. And now we just relock our hands. We play that same game we played before. and now we can effectively step over our partner's knee. So whenever I see I can't bring my knee to my partner's knee because my partner's stopping me with either good knee position or a hand coming up, I switch my hand position from centered hands to a long arm, short arm, where we either go locked hands, inside elbow, or tight waist, inside elbow, and then we bring our partner's knee down to our knee instead of bringing our knee up to our partner's knee. So we pull our partner's knee down away from the elbow so we can expose the knee instead of bringing our knee up to our partner's knee. That makes it much easier. So let's say this time, for whatever reason, we don't want to use the method we just looked at. It's a great method, it's very robust, and it's hard to counter. But let's say for whatever reason, you don't feel comfortable doing it. Here's another option, which is a great option that can be used instead of the previous one. And this time, we'll be looking to switch our hands, but this time to a near side tight waist, where instead of punching our far arm through to the near hip, we punch our near arm through to the far hip. Now let's take a look at what this looks like. This time, let's rotate this one. The last time, we went to a situation where we went here, like so. This time, we feel like there's no knee exposure, we're going to shoot our hands through in the opposite direction. And we're just going to move to a situation where I can get my hand all the way through and I can capture my partner's far waist like so. Now, for this one, I'm always going to recommend you use locked hands. Why? Because you don't need to pull your partner's knee down on this side. All you need to do is pin your partner's hip. So if I go here, my partner can strip my grip, and there's no advantage of having unlocked hands. I don't need to move my partner's leg at all. All I need to do is control my partner's hip, like so. So now, when she goes to move that hip around, she can't move the hip at all. And now it's a pretty easy thing for me to bring my head across the other side, and now I can walk into an extreme angle, where now I can walk almost completely perpendicular to my partner. So I just lean forward, I start angling out to this side, and I just take my knee, and I step over my partner's knee like so. And now from here, when she goes to move in this position, she can't go anywhere. And now from here, I do the same either hip switch method, like so, or I use the control-based negation of movement method, where I walk, and now we're ready to play, okay? So whenever I see I can't step over the knee, and I just want a different option, I just take my hands, I just finagle them through. I want to get my left hand as deep as possible. So I want to get my elbow connected to my partner's hip on this near side. Your partner's laying on top of your hand, so this may take, 5 seconds, 10 seconds to get your hand all the way through. And it's not a race. The whole time you're doing this, your partner's trying to move. But you can't really move anywhere. From here, we just take our elbow inside of our partner's far hip. And now, when she goes to move anywhere, it's a very hard thing to do. It's a pretty easy thing now for me to just walk to an angle, step over my partner's knee, then play a game where we shelf it, and we play right from there, okay? So this time passing with the near side tight waist, where we go through it to our partner's far hip, where you can use a unlocked hands and a tight waist with an inside elbow, but I generally recommend going with locked hands. The only time I'd ever use unlocked hands is if your partner from here is just so much bigger than you, and your hands are so short that you can't actually connect your hands. All right, but most of the time, you'll be able to lock your hands. If you can get a strong connection of your elbow to their hip or rib cage on this side, we can go in and we can lock our hands like so. If I absolutely can't lock my hands, then we just go in, we grab the waist, and we put a hand on the inside of our partner's knee, and then we put weight down into our partner. If I go here, and there's no weight leaning into my partner's leg, she can strip my grip pretty easy. So if I have to use unlocked hands, I just lean forward into my partner. So when she goes to strip the grip, there's weight over the hand, and the grip is much harder to strip. And now from here, we just walk, we get over the knee, and we look to pass from there. let's say now that we choose to use this near side tight waist, and we just can't get over our partner's knee again. This is unlikely. You'll probably be able to get over your partner's knee, but let's say whatever reason you just cannot, your partner's posting on your hips, or she just is great with hand fighting, you can't step over your partner's knee. How can we drag the knee down to us rather than going up to the knee? This time, we're going to shelf the leg. We're going to take our hand across just like we did before, except for this time, instead of going to step over our partner's knee, we're just going to lean forward once again, and we're going to take our elbow back to our hip, and we're just going to grab a V grip on our partner's ankle like so. Okay? Now, understand that because your hands are unlocked, there's nothing really controlling your partner's hip on this far side. So if there's no weight over my partner's body, she can just shrimp out and move out and away from me. So what's important is that when I switch to a V grip and I have unlocked hands, I lean forwards towards my partner's far shoulder. So now when she goes to shrimp away, I can always walk with her. So if you have to, I stay on my knees until my partner goes to move. And then I just pop up slightly off my knees. Now from here, she's stopping me from stepping over the knee with her hand. I just use a V grip to take my partner's knee down. Usually what will happen is you can, if your partner is naive, you just extend it all the way through and you pass right to side control. Usually you'll move it just a few inches so you can shove it between your two legs. Now I can go back to a lock when she goes to move from here. We walk and we shelf it. So you're dealing with someone naive, I lean forward. She goes to shrimp away. She can't. This time, I move it just enough, I drag it down just far enough to expose it to my knee. We step over. Let me go back in. We take the time to relock. When she goes to move, the only way she can go is to extend the leg straight. And she does. She aids me in the pass, in the shelf, and then we're past my partner from there. So this time, we feel like we can't get the inside elbow, we can't get the inside elbow, we can't step over the knee. We unlock our hands, we go to a V grip, and we put weight onto our partner so she can't shrimp away. And then instead of going up to the knee with our knee, we pull the knee back down we pull her knee down to our knee, and then we step over, relock, and then pass. So now, before we go into splitting the legs, which we've already split the legs with one leg, but we can go deeper into this and split the legs with two legs. Let's look at why this is all working the way it does. All right, and let's understand first the relationship between stuffing a leg and shelving a leg. If I'm in this position, like so, and I want to stuff a leg into half guard, I have to create knee exposure where her knee is exposed to mine, and now I can shove her leg down and stuff it into a half guard. Okay? If, from this position, I go to step over my partner's knee, and she pulls the knee up to my rib cage and up to her chest like so, what she will always do is to create ankle exposure, okay? Where I can expose the front of her ankle. Right now, if her knee drifts down towards the floor, you see her ankle is not exposed here. Her ankle is connected with a sticky butterfly hook to the inside of my thigh. But it's easy to step over her knee. If she pulls the knee into the chest, now her ankle drifts further down towards the floor, and it's easy to expose the front of her ankle to a shelf. So you see the relationship here between the shelving and the stuffing. Right now, if we're in this position, it's easy to step over my partner's knee, but it's harder to expose my partner's ankle. If from here, she points her knee towards the ceiling, it's harder to step over the knee, but easier to expose the ankle. So I can create frontal ankle exposure. My partner denies me stepping over the knee. So when I go to step over my partner's knee, if she allows the knee to drift towards the floor, it's a pretty easy thing to step up and over. Now, she goes to stop me from stepping over the knee. Let's say, not even with a hand assist, she just stops me from stepping over the knee. It's a pretty easy thing now to sprawl my leg back, and now you see there's tons of ankle exposure, like so. So I'm not going to say it's impossible to shelf my partner's leg when the knee is out like so. You can still shelf your partner's leg, but there's less of a purchase on your partner's ankle. And there's no reason why you wouldn't just force half guard. So the dilemma between stuffing and shelving is a very clear one. If my partner's knee is further down towards the floor and more parallel to the floor, it's a pretty easy thing, and there's no reason why I wouldn't be able to just step over my partner's knee and stuff her into half guard or pass with other sequences like we looked at. If in the event my partner has a knee that's close to my rib cage and now I can't step over my partner's knee, it's a pretty easy thing to create that ankle exposure where we can shelf our partner's leg like so. Okay, so that's the first two relationships we play. We play a dilemma between stuffing my partner's leg into half guard and shelving my partner's shin across my hips. Okay? Now, where does a splitting trilemma come into place? Let's say I try to step over my partner's leg and I can't do it. Let's say I try to shelf my partner's leg and I can't do it. Why would I not be able to do either of those? When I go to step over my partner's knee, my partner can pull the knee in towards the rib cage. If from there, my partner sees me switch knees, and now I go to shelf it, what she can do is she can bring the knee out and open, and she can pull her butterfly hook in so that she's a sticky butterfly hook, and that makes it hard for me to shelf, like so. Now from here, if her knee's open, I can bring the knee back inside, and I can try to step over the knee, but if she pulls the knee up, now I'm going to get beat again. So if your partner's very advanced, you find yourself in a battle where you have a body lock, and you're trying to step over the knee. She raises the knee, I can't step over the knee. I go to expose the ankle, I can't expose the ankle. As she goes to expose the ankle, she extends towards me. I try to step into a half guard. If she stays here, this is where the dilemma comes into place. And if she stays there, I can quickly step over and go into a half guard. This is where the first dilemma comes into place. You go back and forth between the two. I try to step over, I fail. I try to create ankle exposure, she extends, I fail, I go right back into half guard. This time, she's quick. I try to step over the knee, I can't do it. I try to switch my knees and shelf, I can't do it. I try to go back to quickly step over the knee, and she beats me, and I find myself going back and forth, and I feel like, oh man, I'm just not going to be able to shelf or to stuff my partner's leg from here. What can I start doing? From here, I can start switching to a tight waist or to an inside elbow. I can start splitting my partner's legs. Where from here, now I can pin my partner's near side hip, and I can start pommeling my ankle behind my partner's ankle. Where instead of creating knee exposure to step over and stuff into half guard, or creating frontal ankle exposure to shelf my partner's leg, I create inside ankle exposure. So instead of creating outside ankle exposure or knee exposure, we create inside ankle exposure, and now we can split our partner's legs like so. So now, when she goes to stop me from moving around from here or move around herself, it's an incredibly difficult thing, and it's a pretty easy thing for us to start working from here. Okay? Once you get an inside elbow, I'm not going to lie, it's almost impossible for your partner to stop you from splitting the legs should you choose. Okay? If she goes to back heel strongly, it's a pretty easy thing for me to pummel my leg inside. Okay? It doesn't require special dexterity or anything like that. But let's say for whatever reason, maybe you're injured, maybe you don't want to play this game, and I feel like my partner from here is back heeling so strongly where I just can't get my ankle inside. Understand that you can threaten the splitting of the legs and then just step over into half guard. You can threaten the splitting of the legs. My partner goes to back heel. We can quickly switch and move back to a shelf. And then we can play a game from here. So it comes full circle now, where you feel like you can't step over a knee for whatever reason. Maybe your partner has good knee position and sticky butterfly hooks. Maybe she's very good at leg pommeling. Or maybe you just feel like you can't shelf your partner's leg and she's using a thumb post inside your knee where you just can't step over the knee. Whenever I see that, I just switch to an inside elbow and I play here. where now I can start splitting my partner's legs. The way I do this is I just turn my body side on. So first, we're in a situation like so, I can't step over, I can't stuff. We just switch to a long arm, short arm. We take that elbow inside like so. And now I just slide my knee to the outside of my partner's hips. The reason I can lean so far to the side is because my partner has no ability to off balance me with knee levers or anything else. If I was like this, now my partner could, one, just knee lever me out to the side, I get off balanced, or two, block a closed guard if my elbow's outside. But because I have an inside elbow, when she goes to lock closed guard, she can't. When she goes to knee lever me, she can't point the knee up at the ceiling. So now I can control my partner and I can lean all the way to the side like so. Now it's a pretty easy thing to do whatever we want from here. I can, one, step over into half guard, we'll look at that later. I can, two, pummel my ankle behind my partner. I can, three, if I feel like I can't pummel my ankle, I can quickly make a switch. I can shelf my partner's leg, which is easier now because of that inside elbow position. So I play a game between stuffing my partner's leg to half guard, shelving my partner's leg across the hips, and if all fails, splitting my partner's legs with an inside foot. So I play between exposing my partner's knee to my own knee, exposing the outside of my partner's ankle, and exposing the inside of my partner's ankle to either stuff, shelf, or split my partner's legs. All right, so before we move on, I just want to circle back to the initial body lock, and I want to show you how you guys can pretty much expedite this process and skip all of the moves that we just did if you know your partner is going to be very talented or you feel like this is the right thing to do and during any given circumstance. Understand that we make this conversion when we feel like, okay, we can't step over the knee, we can't shelf the leg, we have to start splitting the legs, and we go to an inside elbow with either a tight waist or locked hands. Understand that at any point, if you can get to this position before trying all those moves, before locking the body lock, trying the hip switch, trying to do all those, if you can just get to a situation where I can go in with a tight waist, like so, and play from here, and go in and lock my hands, now it's a pretty easy thing to start splitting my partner's legs. Whether I want to, one, go into a situation where I move into this position, where I can force a shelf, which is where we're going to go into later, where we go in here and we start forcing shelves on our partner, which is an option if we can't shelf and we can't step into half guard. Instead of splitting my partner's legs, we can force them into a shelf, which is a totally different series. We're going to do that later, don't worry. Or we can get a knee to the inside. Let's say we go here. I go in and I sprawl past the leg. I get past that butterfly hook, and now we walk in. I go to the inside elbow, and now we go right to a situation where we can split our partner's legs. Or we're playing around, we're hand fighting, we get a knee to the inside, and now right from here, we have a knee to the inside, and we go in and we shoot to this position like so. Or we get our partner off balance. We're playing here, we go to take our partner out of balance like so, and now as she goes to come in, we can either go right in to this position, we can step a knee inside, and go right into this position, and now instead of going through all the steps we just went through, we can just bypass those and immediately go right into splitting our partner's legs like so and playing this game here. All right, and now understanding that instead of going through the whole series where it takes you 2 minutes, 3 minutes to try to do all the previous moves, if you can split the legs right away with one knee and just go right to an inside elbow and start playing this game right from the beginning. All right, so everyone always asks themselves, okay, I understand you're showing me how to do this, but why would I do this? Why would I use a long arm, short arm method with an inside elbow, whether it be locked hands or unlocked hands, versus hands in the center? Okay, this is a great question to ask. Why would I use one versus the other? When I feel I'm dealing with someone who has an incredible ability to pummel their legs, and they have great sensitivity with their legs, and it's going to be incredibly hard at any point to step over your partner's knees and force them into half guard, or shelf their leg, or change and get into a better position from the original starting position with 2 feet inside. Whenever I feel I'm dealing with someone who has an incredible ability to stay with this same leg position with 2 sticky hooks inside my legs for long amounts of time after I lock a body lock, that's when I'll start with using the inside elbow. Whether it's before I lock, so I come in and I go to a deep tight waist here, and now from here, instead of fiddling around with blocking my hands and playing for minutes with my hands centered and not being able to step over a knee, I'll just go right away and I'll step over a leg. Or I initially lock my hands, and then I switch. I go here. I go here. Or I flatten my partner out. I switch, and I go here. And that's a pretty easy thing to start stepping over my partner's knees or splitting my partner's legs like so. So when you're asking yourself, why would I do this? If you find yourself training with someone or competing against someone where you try to body lock them and you find yourself with centered hands for minutes at a time trying to step over someone's knee, force them into half guard, shelf a leg, and you just cannot get anything going, that is the perfect time to switch to an inside elbow, whether it be with unlocked or locked hands. That will allow you to either split the legs very easy or step over knees and force them into half guard. So now let's go over a very general rule regarding a basic body lock with my hands in the center line and staggered hands where my hands are to one side or the other and I have a long arm, short arm, or a tight waist with an elbow inside. And again, there are exceptions to all these rules. This is just a very general rule. When I have my hands in the center, this gives me great versatility to quickly switch from side to side when I look to pass. So if I'm looking to pommel legs, I can look to sprawl past one leg, and then if my partner doesn't allow me to do that, I can quickly switch back, and I can start to work back to the other side, and I can quickly switch from side to side. Whether I'm here, or whether I'm in a high tripod body lock, which we're going to look at later, so whether I lock my hands and I come forward, or I'm playing from this position, I can quickly run to a side, I can pommel legs, I can run to the other side, I can pommel legs, and I can work side to side. I can move very quickly side to side, okay? So the advantage of having hands in the center is that I can more quickly move side to side, and I can generalize my attacks by moving side to side. So that my partner's defense isn't concentrated in one little area. She has to worry about me passing to both sides relatively quickly, okay? When I have a tight waist and I have open hands or closed hands, in general, this is going to allow my partner to start to focus all of her defenses to one side. Now, there are exceptions where I can pass from side to side. But in general, when I have a tight waist, I'm usually going to be passing right now to my partner's right side, and she knows that. So she can focus all of her defensive posture into this one little area, which makes it harder to break through those defenses a lot of times when my partner's fighting in one area versus a generalized area of going side to side. Okay, it's just like, for example, if I'm passing someone's guard and I go into leg locks. From here, if all I'm doing is attacking my partner's legs, it's a pretty easy thing for her to just focus into this one area, and she can defend because all of her defenses are focused on one area of the body. You saw a very clear example of this with Eddie Cummings versus Gio Martinez in EBI. The second Eddie switched to something else and went from the leg locks to going into the upper body, he immediately had Gio in an armbar at the end of the match, and then time ran out. So whenever you focus your attacks in one area of the body or one side of the body, it's usually easier for your opponent to defend on that side of the body. Okay, so she can focus the attacks or she can focus her defenses on one side of the body and recognize that the battle is going to be fought now in general on this side of the body. Okay, so that's a disadvantage of using tight waists or locked hands like so with an inside elbow. Another disadvantage is that you can't quickly pass to the other side. Now, I said there are exceptions to this, where most of the time you're passing to this side. You can pass the other side, but you can't move nearly as fast to pass to the other side as he could if your hands were centered. So you're focusing now mainly on one side. You can go to the other side, but it's going to take much longer over time, and your partner's going to see it coming. Okay? The great advantage of this is that you have much better control over one of your partner's hips and legs than you do with centered hands, which means that in general, it's very easy to step over your partner's legs compared to having hands locked in the center. Okay? So when my partner's knees are into the chest, she knows I'm going to be passing in this direction now, for the most part, but it's going to be very easy for me to pin my partner's hip, control a leg, and I'll step over a knee, and I can go in, and I can step over a leg and start to work from here. So in general, when I have my hands in the center, my partner has to generalize defense with to both sides. She can't just focus on one side. She has no idea which side I'm going to choose to go to, so she has to be ready for me to pass to both sides. Okay? I can quickly switch to either side using a shuffling of my hands, using a shuffling of my legs. The disadvantage of locked hands is that it'll be much harder for me to step over my partner's knees. Okay, if my partner has good knee position, it's going to be much harder for me to step over my partner's knees and force her into half guard. One of the great advantages of using an inside elbow is that from here, it makes it much easier for me to control one of my partner's legs, one of my partner's hips, and step over knees and quickly go in and force half guard. The great disadvantage, not the great disadvantage, but the disadvantage is that you are generally, when you go with a tight waist, are generally passing in one direction, and your partner can focus all of her defensive posture into that one little area on one side of the body. And it will take you much longer to move from a pass from one side to switch to the other side, and your partner can adjust accordingly and recognize the change in direction and make adjustments as you move. Okay, so those are your pluses and minuses with centered hands versus staggered hands when you're looking at body locks, either body locks or tight waist with inside elbow. Okay, and you have to be able to mid-match read what your partner's doing and see, okay, which one am I going to use? Am I going to have my hands in the center? Is it easy to step over a knee? Or do I need to make an adjustment where I need to go inside elbow, step over a knee, and then work from there? So we went over this a little bit before, playing with an inside elbow, whether we have locked hands or whether we have unlocked hands. Let's look at one versus another. What? What?
Nothing.
This is what I have to deal with. It's just like 50 hours of this. Like your guys watching like an 8-hour instructional. It takes like 50 hours to film, and it's just this the whole time.
Gosh, I don't know why.
Don't know what, right?
No.
It was allergies, right? That's why you're crying.
I'm so sorry. Let's do it again.
No, we're not doing it again. They're going to watch this.
Okay.
Okay? So, in general, when I'm looking to use this inside elbow position, this is more robust of a grip, but it gives me less ability to pull my partner's knee down and step over it. This is a much less robust grip. My partner can strip the grip more easily, but it gives me far more range of motion to actually pull my partner's knee down towards me. My hands are connected. I can't possibly pull my partner's knee down that far. So I can go unlocked hands, and I can pull my partner's knee down, and I can step over it. When you're using a strategy, when you're using an inside elbow, my general recommendation is if you are looking to quickly step over your partner's knee and pass a guard or force half guard, we go with an inside elbow. We use unlocked hands to quickly pull the knee down as far as we can, and then we shoot the knee over to force half guard or to pass my partner's guard. So if we're looking for a quick step over the knee into half guard or side control, I generally use unlocked hands. If I'm looking to play more of a long game, where I'm looking to better my position and control my partner longer through the entire pass, or not involve myself in half guard at all, let's say I want to split my partner's legs, control my partner, negate movement the whole way through, and then eventually pass, and I want to play more of a long game, what I typically recommend is either one, pulling my partner's leg down and then switching to a locked hand scenario, or 2, just going in and locking my hands right away. So in general, if you're playing a longer game where you want to get better position before I pass my partner's guard, and I want to get into strong passing positions from here, where now my partner goes to move, she's completely pinned. She can't move her legs at all. She can't trap my legs. She can't do anything from here. I play with locked hands. Okay, this will take much longer for you to pass in general, but you'll have control the entire way through. And you'll be in a much better position to pass. And you can pummel your legs into much better positions because you have more time. In general, with unlocked hands, you can shoot into a quick pass or a quick step over where you force half guard or step over, or you hip switch pass. We play from here and we start passing your partner's guard. But it'll take less time, but you'll have less control the whole way through. So the choice is yours when you're training or competing or whatever the case is. Tactically, you have different decisions to make. Understanding that if you have locked hands, it'll take longer to work, but you'll have a lot more control the whole way through. And if you have unlocked hands, you'll be able to move more quickly and quickly step over a knee because you have more range of motion that you can pull the knee down, but you will have less control the entire way through the movement. Okay, so you can weigh your options and act accordingly. We've had this little introduction to switching our grips. This is the first time we actually switched. But the first introduction to really switching and using this tight waist or these locked hands. Okay, so how can we split our partner's legs? Everything we've been doing so far is under the assumption that we split our partner's legs with one leg, and then we tried to play a game where we tried to shelf our leg, we tried to step our partner's leg, we tried to shelf and our partner's leg on our hip, and both of those failed. So now we go into splitting the legs. Okay? How can we split the legs from here and put 2 of our legs between our partner's legs and create that inside ankle exposure? We're just going to finagle our hands through like so, and now we're going to either one, switch to an inside elbow right from here, or if I feel like my partner's knee is so tight where I can't switch to an inside elbow and actually lock my hands, we just go with open hands first. We drag the knee down, and then we go in and we lock our hands once again. Now from here, again, I take my knee across. My partner can't knee lever me because of the fact that I have the inside elbow. If I didn't have the inside elbow, she could lock close guard or knee lever me and start to off balance me. So I use that inside elbow. The only thing my partner can do from here to stop me from splitting the legs is by taking her hand, pulling on my elbow, and now shooting her leg forwards and accepting a half guard, where now we get what we want either way. So she can only accept half guard, or she can allow me to split the legs, both of which I'm liking. I take my ankle, and I just pommel it behind my partner's leg like so, and I expose the long end of the lever, the inside of that ankle. And now from here, we take our knee back to position, and now we have 2 of our partner's legs controlled. When she goes to move those legs at all, it's almost impossible. I have a knee-elbow connection. When I don't want us for my knee and elbow to drift apart, my partner locks close guard, and that's back to square one now. So I keep that knee-elbow connection. When she goes to move from here, it's a very, very difficult thing. And now we can easily move to all of our passes or forcing half guard or whatever we want. Another thing that we can do in order to split my partner's legs is if we lock up an inside elbow right from the beginning, let's say we instead of flattening our partner out, sprawling past the leg, trying to step the half guard, trying to shelf, that fails, and then we split the legs, we can go right to this right from the beginning. So we can go in, we can lock up, we can either move our hands and lock, or use a tight waist and lock. And now from here, we can sprawl past the leg just the same. So she's a butterfly hook in. I just step a leg up. And now from here, I have that knee elbow connection because you can't lock a half or a close guard. And now I just start walking and sprawling my leg the same way we did when she goes to keep a sticky left hook. Now I have my partner's leg split with one leg. And now from here, I split it with the second leg and I'm ready to work. Conversely, I sit my partner down to her back, And now, same thing. Instead of doing it from a seated position, we just move right here from a supine position. We use that inside elbow. And now from here, we spar our leg by. We can look to go through, split our partner's legs. When she goes to move from this position, it's a very, very difficult thing indeed. Okay? So we can play a game where we go through the whole sequence, we test our partner, it all fails, we make the transition, we split the legs. But we don't have to do that. We can go in, and we can just lock up right here. We keep our head centered long enough. She goes to off balance me or shove to guillotines, she can't do it. I go in, I form an inside elbow, and now from here, I step a leg up, I start sprawling, and I split my partner's leg. You can also do it from a position where you go in, I start with an inside knee. For now, I just come in, I lock on, I get to an inside elbow, and now I don't even have to sprawl past my partner's leg. I split my partner's leg, and now I'm in my prime passing position. Okay? So there are many entrances that we can use into this position. We looked at the Y, we would stagger our hands. We looked at the differences between locked and unlocked hands. And now we're going to go back to this applicability and how we can start to use this when we feel like what we've been looking at. We flatten our partner out. We try to step over our partner's leg. She blocks me at the knee. I feel like I can't step over the knee. I try to shelf. I feel like I go to shelf. I can't shelf. I go to step over the knee. I feel like I can't step over the knee. So now from here, we take our hands through. We go to that inside elbow. And we start splitting our partner's legs like so. And now we're ready to go in and start with our best type of passing. Two of our partner's legs split. And we can have very, very successful pins and passes from here. So once we split our partner's legs, and we have two legs inside, and this is, just so you know, when you put a knee inside, this is also splitting your partner's legs. This is just a more advanced version, and a much more controlling version of splitting your partner's legs, because now your partner's legs are truly split, okay? So once I get into this position, it's a pretty easy thing to start passing from here. The easiest way, and one of the most effective ways, is to use a method where I just quickly take my knee down to the floor, like so, and then as I take my knee down to the floor, I sweep my partner's leg back to center, and I just pummel my other leg into that same figure four position we looked at before. So my knee comes down, my head switches from side to side, and we just move to this figure four position here. When she goes to start moving her leg around and trap me in half guard, she's not going anywhere. And now all it's left to do is that same exact knee sweep where we can either one, just hip switch out and catch, or we can use a more controlling method where I step over, I start moving my partner's leg back towards center until we can shelf our partner's leg. So we split the legs, and again, we're working from this initial setup where we went through this whole entire sequence, tried to step over the half guard, we failed, we tried to shelf and we failed, but you can get to this position right from the get-go if you want to. You don't have to go through this entire sequence. Anytime you can get a knee inside with an inside elbow, you can split your partner's legs. So you can apply this anytime you can get here. There's tons of situations that will get you to this position. We just looked so far at one of them where we sprawled past our partner's leg, we converted to a tight waist, we used an inside elbow after we tried to step over into half guard and do all of our other series. But you can get here from many different areas. So we split our partner's leg, like so, and now from here, we just drop a knee, and as we drop a knee, we pummel a leg over. And now we lock that figure of four. When she goes to reinsert a butterfly hook, or she goes to move around, it goes to bridge, she has no effect. And now from here, we just cover and shelf, and we've passed. Okay, so I'm going to Very easy, very similar to before. This time using a split of the legs. All right, so this time, either I can force half guard if I want to play a longer game and play a more tactical game. Like, for example, I can give you an example. It's ADCC, 5 minutes, no points, 5 minutes, points. And we're 4 minutes and 30 seconds in. So it's 30 seconds till points. Maybe tactically, instead of passing and getting no points for the pass, I'll force a half guard. And then when points are initiated, I'm chest to chest and half guard, and I can easily pass. So there are times where you want to go to half guard instead of going to a quick pass right away. Maybe you want to play a longer game, you want to wear your partner down, or maybe it's a tactical decision as far as scoring points or whatever the case is. Sometimes you want to just force your partner into half guard. So how can we do that? This can be dictated by either myself or by her. I mentioned this before, where if my partner starts yanking on my elbow and I see the integrity of the knee and elbow connection is starting to be disrupted, that's my time to go into half guard. So the second I see my partner clear my elbow, I can't not do anything from here because she's going to lock closed guard, and then my whole position is going to get screwed up. So the second I see my knee and my elbow separate, whether she does it like so, I can go and I can force half guard, one, where I can force her into half guard, or two, you can just do the same pommel we did before, where she goes to start clearing and pommeling. If I use a short trail leg, I don't have to accept half guard. If I want to accept half guard, then I just keep my foot on the floor, and I allow her to lock. So either she initiates it, and we just step over the knee, or I initiate it, and I step over the knee, and now from here, I just drag her over my leg instead, and I give her a half guard, and now I start to work from here. So very simple, very basic like we did before. This time, instead of using a short trail leg, we just keep our leg on the floor, and we force our partner into half guard rather than immediately passing. And again, depending on where you are, you might want to be in half guard, you might want to be in side control, but the choice is yours. I just want you to know both of those options are there. Now let's look at a knee slide through when we have our partner's leg split. Now, if you guys recall, I taught this in the systematically attacking the guard, the first passing instructional I did, and I referenced the Hamlo Bahal match as I pass Hamlo at ADCC. Anytime I see I can pin a leg to the floor, I can knee slide through. In this case, we're using it with an actual split of my partner's legs where I have an inside elbow. So anytime I can pin my partner's knee to the floor and create space between the knees, it's a pretty easy thing to slide my knee on through. So from here, I just raise my hip slightly, I take my knee to my partner's hip, like so, and now as my knee goes to the floor, my head switches, and we just cut the corner like so. Now my partner's going to be trying to take her knees back inside, so again, I just walk towards my partner's hips, I point the knees away from me, and I shelf my partner's leg. So this is a little bit different application. We'll look at the Hamlo one next. This is a little different application here, where from here, you have the leg split. My head is relatively centered. I'm passing towards my partner's left, or towards my partner's right, towards my left. I take my knee up and off the floor, and I take my knee to the hip. Now, the second my knee comes to the floor, my head switches from looking to my left to looking to my right. So I change the angle. My head goes across to the opposite side of the center line, very slightly, and now from here it's a race of the hips and the knees. If she can get her knee inside my hip, she wins. So I make sure that when I land, I always run towards my partner's hip, so when she goes to do that, I can always shelf my partner's leg up high. So once again, we play a game here. She goes to start moving around. I make space between the knees so we can pass our partner. We can use this as well. So I showed with the Hamlo match in the last instructional. I can use this as a dilemma. When I split the legs initially, I sprawl past one hook. And from here, I try to step over the knee. I'm still creating space between the knees, and I'm stopping my partner from from dominating the space between the knees. When I go to step over my partner's knee, she posts inside my knee, but she has poor knee position. Romulo just made the mistake of having poor knee position and allowed me to knee slide through. This shouldn't really happen, but it does happen occasionally. What she should be doing from here is she should be posting on my knee, but keeping her right knee closed. So now, there's no space to slide my knee through. Romulo was just lazy with his knee position. He had his knee open like this, and he was just focused on the upper body. So whenever I see this, I can go to step over the knee, and then I feel like there's space between the knees. I just simply pike up, I slide my knee through, and then I switch my knee position. So any kind of space between the knees, I can slide my knee on through. Okay? So what's going to happen here with this one is I split my partner's two legs, and now from here, I start walking up and over my partner's knee. Now, if I go to walk over the knee and the knee pinches towards my rib cage, it'll be hard to get over that knee. Okay? If my partner opens up the knee and he pulls the knee up like so, now it'll be harder to a certain degree to get over my partner's knee. If my partner's knee is hovering in like this mid-range area here, a little behind, good. If it's hovering in this mid-range area here, it's a pretty easy thing to immediately step over the knee. If the knee is closed to my chest, to my rib cage, it's very hard to step over the knee. If the knee is opened up all the way to the floor and pulled up to the chest, it's not impossible, but it's harder to step over the knee. I have to walk further. And when you combine that with a hand assist, it's a very hard thing to step over the knee now. But because there's so much space between the knees, I just take my knee up, I slide it through, and then I walk back. So it's the same concept of controlling the space between the knees. This time, we're just doing it in a more advanced way. It'll work on a high-level person who has good knee position. So now, when she actually goes to close the knee, it's physically wedged in place. She can't close it. So she has no ability to dictate the space between her knees. That's a pretty easy thing to slide on through. Whereas here, she has the space she can determine the space between her knees, okay? If I go to knee slide through here and she pinches her knees, I won't be able to do it. If she has her knees somewhere mid-range, it'll be hard to do, but it'll be a pretty easy thing to step over my partner's knee. And if she opens her knee all the way, and pulls her knee up, it'll be harder to step over my partner's knee, but not impossible. When you combine this with a hand assist, it'll be difficult. So now I can't step over my partner's knee, but the knees are so wide open, I can knee slide through, circle, shelf, and we've passed. So the same idea as the one that I used to pass Romulo. When the knees are splayed open, it's easier to slide a knee through the middle. This time, instead of using a knee slide through where she dictates the knee position, I'm physically wedging the knee down to the floor with an inside elbow and the split of the legs so that I dictate the knee position. So I can actively control the space between her knees rather than her moving her knee and just me relying on her naivety to slide the knee through. I'm actually forcing her into that position. This is our little progression that we looked at from here, where we sprawl past the leg, and then we go into our sequence, and we eventually end up at splitting the leg, where we have two of our feet inside of our partner's knees. We completely dominate the space between our partner's knees. Now, this is all fine and dandy, but what happens if we get to an inside elbow position before we sprawl past the leg, and we choose not to sprawl past the leg? This is where it gets interesting, because everything starts to come full circle now. I was talking about forcing a shelf before. We're going to look at how that applies right now. How are these positions different? First, we looked at splitting a leg with an inside knee first, and then the inside ankle second. This time, we're going to come in, and we're going to lock however we choose to do it. We're going to convert to an inside elbow, like so. And now, my partner from here, instead of electing to sprawl past my partner's leg and to get an inside knee, I'm going to choose not to do that. What are some options I have from here? Where now I elect to keep my partner's knee, or my partner's one butterfly hook inside, and instead I can pommel either a hook inside like so. So now from here, I can choose to keep my partner's butterfly hook trapped, or she can have 2 feet inside, and I can just work right from this position. All right, this is a little bit different scenario now, where now I have the inside elbow position, my partner has a different leg position. So that things changed a little bit now, where my partner's foot is on the outside, and now I can dominate the space between her knees. You can choose to do that. Like I said, I can sprawl past the leg, and I can move to this position. But if I choose not to do that, let's look at some options. Let's look.
Cookies?
I was eating cookies, yeah. Protein cookie. All right, let's look at now. Getting to this inside elbow position. My partner has a butterfly hook in. And we're going to look to pass my partner with a quick hip switch. So from here, we don't dominate the inside of our partner's knees. And we're just going to look to flatten our partner out. And then we're going to quickly step over our partner's knee and perform the same hip switch we did before. Only this time, we're going to have an inside elbow. So from here, I just step my knee over quickly. If I have to, if I feel like I'm going to step my knee over and my partner blocks my knee, now you have an advantage. I can go to a tight waist and I can drag my partner's knee down, and now I can always get over the knee. So this is an advantage before, where the first hip switch we did with centered hands, it's pretty basic. If your partner uses sticky butterfly hooks, it's a hard thing to get over the knee. And then if I can't get over the knee, it shuts everything down. But here, we use an inside elbow, we can pull the knee down and step over it. Whether my partner's pretty basic, I can just step right over the knee, or more advanced, and she blocks me, I pull the knee down, and now from here, I just step, and we hip switch once again, and we can relock our hands and shuffle our partner's leg like as we did before. So this time, we play a game, we're playing, I keep my 2 knees outside, we go in, and we lock up like so. From here, I flatten my partner out, and now I go to step over a knee. As I go to step over, I step, and then I hip switch. Same as before. So this time, before we did it with centered hands. So I stepped over, and I hip switched. Maybe we couldn't get over the knee. This time, we can always get over the knee. Where now from here, I can use an inside elbow to hip switch over. I can beat my partner's legs. I can shelf them. I can use that same hip switch. But this time, you're almost guaranteed the ability to be able to step over your partner's knee. So we use an inside elbow this time, but this time, instead of splitting my partner's legs and going through and playing this game, we use a hip switching method, where we just come up and over, we hip switch past, and we shelf. So now let's look at forcing a butterfly half guard as opposed to a traditional half guard. So we have the inside knee position. And these are very similar. I'm just showing you that you can get to either of these positions. And butterfly half and half are going to be 2 different positions. With the inside position, we split the legs. Or even if we don't split the legs, we can come in and we can step over into half guard. If my partner has a leg inside, and I get to this position, I can either step up and over, I can split the legs, like so, and now I can go into a butterfly half guard instead. So instead of having my partner's leg on the outside and ending up in a half guard, I just slide over, I end up in a butterfly half guard, where now from here, it's the same setup almost, but it's a slightly different position because my partner's foot started on the inside and stayed on the inside the whole way through, instead of got pushed to the outside or started on the outside. So now we're ending up in a butterfly half guard versus a regular half guard if my knee started on the inside. So very similar, but you end up in two different positions. So super important. This time, we go in, use an inside elbow, whether it be here or here. And now we play a game where we just force my partner into a butterfly half guard. And now from here, she can elect to stay butterfly or take the leg out and go to a full lock. Okay, so you have the option now of playing a game where we just step up and over our partner's legs. You have the option of splitting your partner's legs. You don't have to split it, but you can if you want to. Same from here. If I have the inside knee, I use an inside elbow from here. I don't have to split my partner's legs. It just gives me more control. Okay? When she goes to move her legs around from here, she has more ability to pommel her legs. She has more ability. If she shoots her legs straight, she can clear that inside elbow. If I split my partner's legs, it just gives me an extra layer of control. Where now when she goes to move, completely pinned. That's a pretty easy thing from here to start playing our game. Okay, so forcing butterfly half guard as opposed to a regular half guard this time. One thing we can do from here is we can shelf our partner's inside leg. So what we can do is we get to an inside elbow, like so, and now instead of sprawling back this leg and bringing the knee inside, I'm just going to start sprawling my other leg back, and I circle away from the lock of the hands. So from here, I just walk out in this direction, and now because I control the space between my partner's knees, my partner can't stop me from shelving her leg like so. And now that we have this shelf, now we can go into all the previous passes we looked at before, where we lean forward, we step over our partner's knee, we look to make the pass off, or if we can't get over the knee, we use the V-grip, we start to bring our partner's knee through. So from here, we can come in, we can take that inside elbow position, and now we can just shuffle away from the lock of the hands. So normally, we'd be stepping a leg up, we'd be shuffling towards the locked hands, and we'd be sprawling the right leg inside. And then playing from here. This time, we're going to shuffle in the opposite direction, expose our partner's ankle, and shelf our partner's leg like so. And now from this position, we just start walking over our partner's knee, or using that same V-grip. Again, always making sure I'm driving weight into my partner. Even if I have locked hands or unlocked hands, if there's no tension, she just pulls my elbow through, and everything falls apart. So I make sure I get this inside elbow position, and I'm leaning forward towards my partner. So when she has to pull my elbow through, she can't do it. And now I can walk through, create that angle, and step over my partner's knee. Okay? Now, this is the interesting part. Everything is coming full circle now. Remember when I told you guys that we can force a shelf when we couldn't shelf our partner's leg. So this time, we play a game where we have the knee inside, and we were trying to shelf our partner's leg, which we couldn't do, right? We couldn't step over the knee, so what did we do? We went to a far side tight waist, and we started playing a game where now from here, we could split our partner's legs. We can also play a game where we force a shelf on our partner's leg, and that allows us to start passing to the other side. This is where things get interesting, okay? Because now, if I can't step over the knee, I've centered hands, I'm in half guard, I sprawl past my partner's leg, I played the whole game, I tried to step over, and I couldn't. I tried to shelf my partner's leg, and I couldn't. From this position, instead of taking my hands to the near hip, I can shuffle my hands across to the far hip. And now from here, I can switch my head position, and I can put my elbow inside my partner's far hip. So what this will look like is, tension with the legs, what this will look like is, from here, I slide my left knee forwards to keep her leg pinned, and then I step my right knee up. I just take my hand and elbow inside my partner's far hip. And now from here, I force a shelf where I can expose my partner's leg, and now I can start passing like so. So I play this game where I first can shelf the leg like so, and then I can convert to an inside elbow. Or I can skip that whole entire process and I can start first with an inside elbow and force a shelf on the leg. Okay? So if I want to go right to a shelf and go right to this passing position, if I start with an inside elbow, which again is going to be not always possible to get to, but if you can get to it, I start with this inside elbow, I shelf my partner's leg, and then it expedites the whole process of dealing with the whole first series that we went to. Where normally, I'm just going in with basic centered hands, basic body locks, I play a game, I try to hip switch, I try to step to half guard, I can't do it. So I sprawl past my partner's leg, right? Now from here, I play a game where I go to step over into half guard again. I try to do that, great. I try to hip switch, great. I can't do that. I have to play a game where now I go in and I shelf the leg and I switch to hands, and now we can start passing our partner. Where I shelf the leg first and I went inside elbow second. So I can immediately expedite that process, and I can just off balance my partner. I can move to an inside elbow, and instead of doing that entire process, now I can just walk to an angle. I can force a shelf on my partner's leg. And now I play a game where I immediately shelf, and I just start playing from here. Now we can beat our partner, and we can play around right from there. Now, you kind of have this full circle. We have this series now, and you have like this mini subsystem within the full body lock system, within the full guard passing system, where I can go through this whole range of motion to get my partner's leg shelved, and then if I want to, I can switch to the inside elbow, and I can start passing. Or I can start with the inside elbow first, and I can convert right to a shelf, and then I can start passing right from there. And in addition, if we're passing on one side of our partner's body, let's say everything we've done, like the first however many hours of this instructional, we passed to one side of our partner's body, and everything was about forcing half guard on this side. Let's say from here, I can't shelf, or I do shelf, I can't shelf. I try to step over into the half guard, I can't shelf. From here, I can come in, I can switch to an inside elbow, and now I can either force a shelf and I can continue to pass in the same direction, or I can just walk to the opposite direction. I can step over my partner's knee, and now I can start passing half guard on the other side. So this allows you to start passing to both sides now, where everything was initially focused on my partner's right side, but if I use an inside elbow on the far side, it allows me to shuffle across, and now you can change your entire passing direction to the other side. So you can play now from side to side with centered hands, where I can quickly switch, or with staggered hands with an inside elbow, where it takes me more time, but I can control my partner for longer amounts of time through the intermediary steps, and I can switch sides just as easily. So this is what gets very, very interesting now, okay? Once you understand the idea of using inside elbows, you can start passing very easily from side to side. You can start shelving your partner's legs. You can start splitting your partner's legs, and you can easily stuff your partner's legs into half guard or butterfly half guard. And you have the option now to go from side to side and not just limited to going and hammering away at one side when you're passing. Okay, so hopefully now everything comes full circle. This starts to make sense, and we have like this mini subsystem within the full body locking system.